Hello again, everybody, and welcome to a very special There's Too Many Fucking People in This Country edition of the Jim Cornette Experience. And I've watched so much wrestling the last week, it's coming out of my ears, but we're going to talk about it today. We're going to review the NWA Studio TV tapings, NWA Power in Atlanta. We're going to review the Wednesday Night Wars with All Elite Wrestling and NXT. I may hurt my gimmick today and like too much stuff and too many people, but I also will shit on some things, so stay tuned. To join me here, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. Oh, for God's sake, he swam his pappy. He's the proprietor of the French Toast Chateau. I was up late last night watching wrestling. It's the great Brian Last, everybody.
You weren't the only one. Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here once again. I got very little sleep, but somehow I am just full of energy from this great night of wrestling action.
Yeah, why don't you take your energy and stick it up your ass? How about that there? How do you like them apples?
That's a heck of a way to start the show, setting the tone.
The guys always used to say when a guy had car trouble, you go in the locker room, guys say, how's your car running? Oh, it's running good now. Why don't you run it up your ass then? Or then when that got known and nobody would fall for it, then somebody would come in and say, are your brakes working on your car? Yeah, well, then break them off and shove them up your ass. Hey, there was no goddamn cell phones. We had to entertain each other, for fuck's sake. Speaking of the weather, I just want to remind everybody that for the past year and a half, I've been screaming about here in Louisville, Kentucky, we have had from January of 2018 until the end of June 2019, we had the wettest, rainiest 18 months ever recorded in Louisville, Kentucky. You've heard me carrying on about this for quite some time now. It's fucking raining. It's raining my workout. It's raining the fucking stonemasons out. We're drowning down here. And then suddenly, we are now, as of October, whatever the fuck this is. What is this? October 4th now? These people are going to hear this?
When people hear this, correct.
You people out there. I got a lot of problems with you people.
You people.
October 4th, it's fucking, well, today we're taping October 3rd. It's 95 degrees, and we're in the middle of the longest drought period with no rain in over 20 years. And I'm not happy, and it's the Republicans' fault, and at least we're impeaching the main one. We'll get to that later on. But for fuck's sake, I'm tired of having to go out and stand there with the hose on my fucking tree but be careful what you ask for. For a year and a half, we said, is it ever going to quit raining? Well, it did forever.
Hey, Jim, I wanted to ask you, because we didn't get a chance to talk too much after last week's show because you got so busy and you ended up having to go to Atlanta, which we'll hear about later in the show. But were you able to see the reaction on Twitter after last week's show? How many people, I was kind of surprised how many people reacted to the announcement of the passing of Susie from the post office.
You know, I did see, I saw some of it because, long story short, and then I'll answer your question. I have a laptop I take with me on the road, but it has to go to the Goof Squad because it's fucking crashed or something. So I didn't have any internet in Atlanta. Say that 3 times fast. So, but I did before I left because I left on Saturday. Had to go down to see the studio set up on Sunday and everything, etc. for production. But I saw some of it, and that was. But you know what? One person actually retweeted her funeral notice or her, what do they call them? God dang it.
Yeah, well, it was one where it was actually, they thought it was her. It wasn't confirmed. That was actually her.
Well, but hold on a second. Just, you're getting to the finish here quickly. I don't know whether it was a funeral or whether it was a memoriam. Memoriam is what I'm looking for, but one person out there got it right, but I was afraid to retweet it because you know how people are. And I didn't, this woman's family, right, that has no idea that in the world that she became somewhat of a celebrity. I didn't want any fucking assholes, right? But it was great. The amount of people that really did say, gosh, we're sad. We don't even know this woman. But I did see it got a lot of reaction. Yes. And then I didn't see anything from like Saturday to fucking Wednesday on the internet at all. Which was a good thing, a good relaxing thing.
You hear, if you're off Twitter for at least a day, maybe 2 days, you start hearing from people, is Jim okay? We haven't seen Jim on Twitter. Is Jim all right?
I was fucking busy and internetless, which I recommend to everybody every once in a while. No, but once again, I mentioned there's too many people in this country, specifically Atlanta, fucking Georgia. I lived in Atlanta in the 80s. I went in there and out of there for a brief period of time. Went in and out all the time in the 80s, even in the 90s. We ran Marietta with Smoky Mountain. Even 10 years ago, I was driving around Atlanta and past Atlanta constantly, once or twice a month, to go to Orlando for TNA. And I don't know what the fuck's happened, but I think maybe the invaders have landed. They sent about 1.5 million, and they put them all in Atlanta, so they're all centralized. Because the fucking traffic of a Saturday afternoon, they're working on the loop, the 285 loop. All the Georgians know what I'm talking about. So I decide, well, it's Saturday afternoon. I'll go through 75 downtown instead of this major construction on the loop because it's Saturday, right? 5 lanes, bumper to bumper, stop and go for miles. Sunday afternoon, going back downtown to go to the studio. Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock, stop and go, 5 lanes. So I finally asked, I said, when I leave Wednesday, what time should I leave Wednesday morning from the airport area where I was staying to go up the loop and through Marietta before traffic? They said 5:30 or 6. So I left at 5:45, thinking I might beat the traffic. It didn't work. And I'm told that the evening rush hour subsides right before we got out of the tapings each night, about 10:30, 11 o'clock. So what the fuck? You might as well live in New York now as live in Atlanta. It's not like living in the South anymore. And I was telling some of the guys, the people that have the Midnight Express book have seen the schedule. The WWF schedule in the 80s was crazy too. I'm sure they would have had the same issue, but I can speak from experience that we would have not made a large number of the house shows on Saturday nights if we were in Atlanta at the studio for taping, not being able to get to the fucking airport, or vice versa. Double shots on Sundays, getting from one place to another, even if you were driving or flying. And now with the traffic in Charlotte and Atlanta, a lot of Crockett's schedule in the 80s would not even fucking work today. It was close then, but it wouldn't work today.
You've ranted on the show about Charlotte in the past. Which is worse now, Atlanta or Charlotte?
Oh, Atlanta's a whole nother fucking level of suck. This is ridiculous. And the people are crazy, and they're driving like they stole somebody's car and they're trying to get away. In traffic, swerving, cutting across 4 lanes, slamming on brakes, swerving, no signals. They're very unfine people. They don't use their left and right turn indicators. They're unfine people. There's not fine people on both sides of this. So, anyway, if you live in Atlanta now, you're taking your life in your fucking hands every time you go through or around town, and you're fucking nuts. But you already know that because you're already driving there. But also the schedule, Brian, I'm too old for this. Before I get to talking about the NWA tapings, let me talk about, I don't know how the guys that are athletes and have to eat right do it. I don't know. The Rock and Roll Express are completely insane because they're a couple years older than me with what they're doing. They flew in 5 o'clock Tuesday morning. They left from wherever the fuck they'd been wrestling for New Japan this past weekend. We'll talk more about that, but the Rock and Roll Express continues to defy Father Time. But anyway, my diet, right? Sunday night, we saw the studio set up, so I had time to have a nice dinner, right? Then Monday, I'm at the studio. We left the airport area at 11 o'clock to make a noon production meeting, so I'm at the studio from 11:30 in the morning till 10:45 that night. There was a food truck out front, so I had chicken fingers and Cajun fries. And then by the time I get back to the hotel, McDonald's, the line's wrapped around the fucking block, right? But there's a Waffle House, and there's nobody in it. I'm in the South. You can eat, not good, but you can eat anytime at the Waffle House. And so I go in and get the to-go, and then the next day, once again, 11 o'clock pickup at the building, 11:30. This time the meet and greet was after the taping, and you can tell I'm still hoarse. So I got out of the building at 11:45, got back to the hotel, changed my clothes, go to Waffle House, get another to-go order. In 2 dinners and I did have a half of a cold sub sandwich that afternoon. So in 2 dinners at the Waffle House, this was the tally. 3 bacon double cheeseburgers, deluxe with everything. 1 Texas bacon chicken melt, and 4 orders of hash brown scattered, smothered, and covered.
That's disgusting.
And and then and I got 9 hours of sleep between Monday morning at 8 and fucking Wednesday morning at 3, and then I got 3 hours sleep and came back home to Atlanta, or to Louisville from Atlanta. See?
I see. Have you weighed yourself?
I haven't even thought about it yet. I haven't had time.
Any predictions on what the result will be?
Well, no, because here's the thing. I only really gain weight when I eat constantly. When I binge eat like once a day because there's no other fucking available fucking food or time to consume it, I usually stay pretty flat. But that was the schedule. And the 440 miles from Atlanta to Louisville is looking crazier all the time. And Nashville sucks. You can't get through Nashville anymore. On the way down there on a Saturday afternoon, they had 24 closed for a mile stretch for a goddamn construction, and I had to go all the way around town, and everybody else did too. And when you come back, it's jammed all the time down there now. It might as well be fucking New Jersey.
Do you have anything with names? I mean, everything was a number. 24 this, 85 that, whatever the fuck. Like up here we have the Grand Central, the Long Island Expressway, the Cross Island, the Southern State. Do you have any highways or parkways with names?
No, we don't do that because we're smart enough to remember high numbers.
Oh, it's an intelligence thing. That's why we do that. Okay.
It's the interstate system, and these are free highways. We're not like you goddamn Yankee carpetbaggers. Fucking have your hands sticking out of a fucking rolling closet every 500 fucking yards, charging people tens of thousands of dollars to cross your highways and byways that ought to be free in a free country.
I'm not disagreeing with you there. New York City's the worst out of everyone. I think it's 20-something out across the Verrazano, and
I laughed in the fucking guy's face when he told me what it was to cross the fucking bridge and from Jersey into New York the last time, or the tunnel, or whatever the fucking death tube is. You're crazy up there. But anyway, fortunately, I have a solution to my problems, because everybody knows that I'm so old. When I was in school, they didn't have history. My mother charged the Light Brigade.
I never heard that one before.
My social security number is 1. Everybody knows I'm old, and also I've had a variety of injuries. I've fallen off scaffolds. I've taken bumps. I've been pile driven by Jerry the King Lawler, figure forward by Nature Boy Ric Flair, bionic elbowed by the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, press slammed by Hawk and Animal the Road Warriors. And also, since I'm a clumsy fuck, from time to time I've slipped and busted my big fat ass. So I got a lot of problems. And this past weekend, between the drive down there, the drive back, sitting in the daggum, announcer seats that they had for us, which were these futuristic TV studio stools and everything. I've had physical therapy on the hip. I don't have an ACL. I've had another one replaced. I got a lot of aches and pains, is what I'm saying to you. And fortunately, I have found an answer, and I'm going to reveal it to the cult of Cornette, because you can save money, folks, if you do the same thing that I'm doing. Cryo freeze. When your knees are crying out and your back is crying for relief and your hip is crying like goddamn Kenny Olivier when he doesn't have a 5-star match from Dave Meltzer. Cryo freeze is the, have you used yours? Because you got some too.
Actually, I did not receive any, but that's supposed to be rectified. That's supposed to be rectified.
They left you out. Well, son of a bitch. Well, in that case, then I'll just tag in and take care of this. But no, this cryo freeze from Omax is a CBD roll-on pain reliever that it relieves muscle and joint pain, and it's almost instant. They say like 15 minutes, but I fucking felt it. And cryo freeze is because it's like, cryogenics, where Walt Disney was frozen in a vault till they can fucking, rejuvenate him, right? It's from cryotherapy, which is cold. So you roll this shit on. It's like a deodorant stick. and you roll it on and automatically it starts freezing your shit. That was especially helpful because you can fry an egg on both of my knees when I get out of the car from a 500-mile trip, right? Cools a fucking the area off that you roll it on, and it's got the CBD. What is it? It's not, I've heard of CBD oil, but this is not oil in this or whatever it's the CBD from the marijuana.
Well, I think
it don't get you stoned. Do they use the oil?
I think the oil is
what it is.
I think it may be. I actually don't know. I have no idea.
It's in there. I'm trying to read the fucking label now, but the point is it's CBD stuff. But it's not like you don't have to worry about Nick Goulas telling you you're on them marijuana pills like he did the Freebirds, because it doesn't get you stoned. That's elsewhere in the legal states. But this makes you quit hurting. So anyway, like I said, you roll it on. Muscle and joint pain within 15 minutes. It's natural but powerful, quick absorbing, scientifically backed formula provides instant pain relief, and the pro athletes use it. Who are those basketball players they were talking about? Fucking
Steph Curry and
LeBron James. Yeah, he's the one Flair likes.
Well, he's very, very good and very popular. Yes, a lot of people like him.
Well, yeah. Well, see, if they don't play for the U of L Cardinals, but anyway. So what you do is you go to Omax, O-M-A-X, omaxhealth.com and enter the promo code JCE, and you get 20% off not only this, but everything else they got on their website, right? So if you're sore like I've got something all the time. I thought about taking a bath in this, but I wanted to dip my toe in carefully, but it works. So if you're sore, if you got shit going on, you can still move around and relieve the pain with Omax Cryo Freeze. Omaxhealth.com, enter code JCE.
Can I reveal something on the air that was an off-air conversation a few weeks ago?
Go ahead.
We were talking about Omax, and you're right. You kind of just wanted to get a toe in first. You very slowly decided you were going to try it, but you did have a guinea pig because you said, Brian, Stacy used it, and she said the shit fucking works.
Well, that's why, because I didn't even have, I was so busy last week trying to get out of town. I didn't even have time to fuck with, rolling something on to relieve my pain, right? I thought it would be some big procedure I'd have to go through. But I gave her one of them, probably the one they didn't send you. And
yeah, really.
And she puts it on her back because she's had problems with her back. And it's cold and it's good and it doesn't hurt and she could sleep better. So, yeah, so she liked it too. Everybody liked it except you because you didn't get any. They left you out. I blame myself. I got yours now, apparently.
I guess it's a big tease for week 2 of the Omax spots here on the show. Will I actually receive any Omax? That's the question.
Maybe they thought we lived together. I had somebody ask me, so you and Brian, you get together and you do that? I say, yeah, we commute twice a week from Jersey and back or whatever the fuck.
I would certainly be the Ernie in that relationship to your Bert.
Well, how about Clem Cadiddlehopper and fucking, what was it? Well, nevertheless, I tried to do a really dated reference and lost my fucking characters. I'm so tired. I've seen so much wrestling, but I was in Atlanta this weekend before we get to the live shows that were broadcast. I was in Atlanta this weekend for NWA Power, which is the title of the studio taping series that they have just started. The first 8 programs were taped. I thought about this. I'm not going to do reviews because nobody's seen the fucking matches yet. So that they will be broadcast starting this coming Tuesday on YouTube. Just type in the National Wrestling Alliance, but on YouTube at 6:05 on Tuesday, it will go up. So you may have to call fucking Billy Corgan and get a licensing fee there. But anyway, so it starts Tuesdays at 6:05 on YouTube next week. So I won't do reviews because nobody's seen it. And also that would make me do spoilers because nobody's seen this. But I'm going to talk about some of the people involved for a minute. I saw, by the way, Dave Wills and Half Pint were there representing Tosh.0 and the Cult of Cornette. You can figure out which is which. I saw Bill Behrens, who I hadn't seen in ages, and had fun talking to him because we pick up whenever we see each other right where we left off, but he helped tremendously with Smoky Mountain Television syndication, and we have some of the same enemies in the television and or syndication department in the old WWF. But I really like this, the setup, and I know people have seen pictures on Twitter and they sent stuff out on social media, but it looks like the old studio setup for not only Georgia Championship Wrestling or World Championship Wrestling, but also just a lot of the, regional studio shows, except at the same time, it's Madison Square Garden compared to every other studio wrestling show. Because, the set is huge and professionally done. The interview set and podium, the announce desk, the dressing with the flags. So what they've done is they've spent money and time and effort to make the old-fashioned studio setup look better than it ever did. And did you see the pictures yet?
Yes, I saw some pictures.
Whereas at TBS at Techwood Drive, we had, 3 rows of metal folding chairs that were beat to hell over the years that the people sat in. The GPB studios in Atlanta, this is a major facility. And it's like you could do a talk show or a game show or whatever else in the studio, and they have high rising bleachers that just go straight up. I love that fucking look. People be familiar with Center Stage in that respect, although it's not nearly as large, but it has the same steep seating setup. So you can get your 150 people in for the studio audience, but it looks like an arena. You know what I'm saying?
Not like ICW with the bleachers set up.
No. No, they didn't actually paint the people on the background.
That's right.
They did for the early shows. They had one row that they put girlfriends and ring crew people, and then they actually had a drop that they rolled down where their people were painted like figures of people in the background, and they just dim lit it, right? So it fucking looked like you were doing fucking puppet theater at some kid's play or something. It was but anyway, back to the NWA. So the set had a great look, and that's one thing. And I was talking to you about this before we went on the air. Billy Corgan, I've never, interacted with him before, except for a few times, speaking to him at TNA tapings in Orlando 10 years ago when I was there. He stopped by a few times just as a fan. This was not when he was with them. But he has respect for the business, respect for the guys and what they do. He comes off the furthest thing from being a star. He's probably worth more money, I think it's a safe assumption, than anybody else in the building that day. And he's had more notoriety worldwide, but he comes off as the guy that's wanting to let the wrestling stars be the stars in this environment. If I went to a goddamn Smashing Pumpkins concert, I'd be happy to sit on the amplifier cases and watch them do their deal. And that's what he's happy. He's a fan and he knows what shit's supposed to look like, but he gives the guys leeway in doing their thing. And then that way, if the guy stands or falls on his own merits, you know whether you got something or not. Anyway.
Do you guys exchange Dixie Carter jokes?
No, he has not brought her name up.
Okay.
And I didn't bring it up to him because, I never sued her or whatever. So I didn't want to, engage in any bad memories, but no, he is really given a lot of thought to this. And this is something that, that a guy in that position doesn't necessarily have to fucking immerse himself in wrestling and try to learn everything, but he has done it. Anyway, they have positives. They have a good referee crew. I especially enjoyed sitting down with Brian Hebner. He reminds me of his fucking father. Of course, he's got a more contemporary hairstyle. Earl was quite the wavy-haired young man in the 80s. But I think Brian's going to be a better referee than Earl because he got started earlier. He got the chance to get started earlier. He's worked in a variety of places, so he's younger. He's in better shape. The younger generation is always in better shape, but he cracks me up because he talks the same way as his dad and has the same kind of sense of humor. And Mike Posey did a real good job. Robert King did a real good job. They've got experience and just some of the talent. And I'm not trying to leave anybody out like Cryo Freeze did you. So I'm just going to hit the high points right now and we'll talk more about it. You just can't get over that, can you?
Either can you.
All right. Anyway, Nick Aldis is a total package. Here's the thing. If you want to establish a championship, you've got to give it to a guy who not only can wrestle like a champion, but looks like a champion and carries himself like a champion. And Nick is the traditional NWA champion model. He wears suits. He looks good. He's a professional athlete. He's got size, but he can move. He can work. He talks intelligently. He's doing the Harley Race thing, the Ric Flair thing, the Lou Thez thing. And he comes off, and he's not necessarily a heel, and he's not a babyface. He can switch to fit the environment, because people understand if he has to maybe kick a guy in the balls every once in a while, he's trying to retain the world championship. But at the same time, a heel can get heat on him because the people respect him, and he got some boos when he did some things, but at the same time, he got a lot of cheers and a few standing O's when he came out from the people, from the studio audience. But he's come a long way, and I think of available guys that fit their profile, I think they made a good choice.
There really aren't that many guys, I guess, if you were going to do a startup promotion, that if you were going to put the world title on them and really want to treat it seriously and want them to have a good look and want them to be a heavyweight,
and be a grown man, a grown adult man.
There aren't that many options. They're lucky they found them.
That's one thing. Oh my God. I think it was Cowboy James Storm said it. We're grown men here in this company. We're not a bunch of little kids playing around. And speaking of the Storms, Cowboy James Storm and Tim Storm, I've been a fan of James since he was in TNA, whether it be America's Most Wanted, he and Bobby Roode especially. And the Cowboy, he's from the South. He's from Tennessee. He gets studio wrestling. He gets old-fashioned pro wrestling. He can work. He's got experience. He cuts promos. That's what they were looking for with their top guys in the NWA. They want guys to come out in this environment and be able to cut promos and talk and get themselves over and do it on the fly and on the cuff or off the cuff. There's no scripts. There's no, you're giving the same thing as Dusty, as I've said many times on the show, used to do. You're talking about the Road Warrior kid. These guys were given direction as to, here's your matches upcoming, or, go out and just tell people how great you are. And it was so refreshing to just see guys, and some did very well, and a few promos, a little awkward. But that was studio wrestling in the 80s too. So I like the Cowboy. He knows his shit. He works hard. Tim Storm was completely opposite. Whereas Cowboy was more in the Hacksaw Duggan mode of the wild ass, kick ass, babyface promo. Tim Storm was the most believable guy on the whole show. He comes off, when he speaks, he sounds like he means it. He sounds like he's a 52-year-old guy that still has kept in great shape, but had a second lease on a career, won a major title, then lost it, and knows that his time is ticking very shortly to where if he's ever going to regain it, he's got to do it, right? And he sounded serious, and he had a good delivery. He's an intelligent guy, and he's a fucking beast. I'll spoil this, but one of his promos, he mentioned that his mother is 94 years old. And she's still, so you can tell it's a genetic thing, right? He's 52, his mother's 94, and she doesn't worry about whether he wins or loses. She worries about whether he gets hurt. And the people start chanting Mama Storm, right? It was an infectious atmosphere. And the people that came to like it and see what was going on. But anyway, so there, Tim Storm was another different kind of promo. Eli Drake, grown adult guy, good looking physique, but he's got a loud mouth. He's a pretty good little heel promo, but he was different than the other guys I mentioned. And then Aaron Stevens, my old protege from OVW, the Idol. He's getting back into the business because he saw this gives him a chance to do what he's doing. He's had something in Magnum PI, and he was giving me all his credits. He's out in Malibu, doing the acting thing, but he's come back to the business because he can bump his ass off. And he's a funny guy because he does act like an old fashioned heel, and the brunt of the joke is on him. Right. but he can still bump his ass off and he can work. And he got heat in this environment by calling himself an actor. The people were booing him out of the fucking building. In the WWE, they call themselves actors and entertainers. And oh yeah. So it was cool there.
Hey, can I ask you about a name or names that I'd never heard before? Who are the Dawson brothers?
The Dawson brothers, these two, they're not identical twins, but they're fraternal twins from North Carolina that are about 285 or 290 pounds apiece. They have to flap their arms so you can tell whether they're rolling or walking. No, I shouldn't say that. No, but there's some guys from North Carolina that they had been seen in the Crockett Cup and in some of the live events, house show events, and they've given them a chance, and they're running with it. They're loudmouths, big, fat, fucking ugly redneck bullies, and they can move around in the ring, and they're getting their first chance to do something on television. Ricky Starks, who I had seen just a couple of times, but he's a guy with a lot of personality, has not had a lot of experience doing television, but he's a good-looking athlete. Ken Anderson, who is, I think that was his fucking gimmick. He was such a promo. They lowered the microphone from the fucking ceiling for him. But he's still in shape. And, he's another guy that can come out and get people to listen to what he's saying. He has the loud, boisterous voice. And he can work, and he's had experience. Trevor Murdoch, I was happy to see. He's almost quit the business. Because, do you know what Trevor Murdoch looks like? Have you seen Trevor?
Yeah, I know who he is.
Okay, there's no way that the WWF is ever going to hire him because the way he looks. Because they wouldn't have hired sight unseen, or, all things being equal, they wouldn't have hired Dick Murdoch. Because he looked like shit physically. And I like Trevor Murdoch. He's a friend of mine, and I enjoy him, so I'm not knocking him when I say this. But he will tell you, I look like shit physically. And so did Captain Redneck. And that's what what was I just saying we were missing last week? I managed Dick, and I knew him. I watched him in person for a lot. Trevor Murdoch takes the backdrops and the slams. He looks just like him. He's got that jowly face. He reminds me of Dick. That's why he took the name, but he trained at Harley's camp. He respects the business. He's an old-fashioned, you expect to see this guy standing at the bar and probably knock you the fuck out if he's drunk and you piss him off. And he can talk. He can talk himself over just because he's a fucking redneck. So you don't really have to, give him too much character study, but he did a real good job. Eddie Kingston is another guy and it looks like shit physically characteristic. And I like Eddie too, because he is a tremendous promo of a completely different kind than all these other guys. The fucking New York badass, I don't look like shit, but if I can get away with it, I'll probably cut you, fucking loudmouth. And he and Homicide, fit that picture. Go ahead.
He has a great punch. I remember when I saw the Ring of Honor years ago when you had me come to a show, that was my big takeaway was, wow, that guy throws a great punch.
And these are guys that used to be wrestling characters that look and sound like they're, either they could be out of control or they are out of control or they probably got arrest records or, some of these guys have fucking anger management issues or Anderson might be at Malone's at the airport. I saw that again, too. Ric Flair spent $100,000 in Malone's Bar and Grill at the airport. I've seen a lot of the girls before. Allison Kay's the champion. We've talked about some of them, I think, from the Crockett Cup. But the one girl I had not seen before and was impressed was Thunder Rosa. Have you seen her?
I don't know. I don't think so.
She's Latino. She's got a cool kind of Day of the Dead, the sugar skull thing, looking gimmick where half her face is painted. She's not hardly bigger than a hiccup, and I was prepared to go, And she got in the ring. Not only is she fucking fast, but she beat those other girls like they owed her trance. She laid this shit in, and it was infectious, and she got over with me. So she's different. The big news from the taping, this is a spoiler, but it's already been on the internet. The Rock and Roll Express beat Wildcard for the NWA World Tag Team Championship, which is 9 times for them altogether in the incarnations of the NWA. And, you know, most people the people there, that was the pop of the night, because they didn't expect it and they were happy for them. A lot of people have been positive on Twitter, and I saw some people go, the old guys, and Cornette's happy because it's his old friends. If I didn't know them at all, when you think about this, Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson have both devoted their lives to the wrestling business. Ricky was setting up rings with his father, Paul, when he was 12. Robert, his older brother, Ricky, was already a main event guy in Georgia and Tennessee when he was, 15. Robert was one of the group in Pensacola, teenage kids trying to get into business with Percy Pringle and Michael Hayes and a few other guys that did wrestle, but you wouldn't know their names. Mike Hendrick, Mobile Mike. And then they not only get into business at an early age, but then they end up the hottest babyface tag team in the entire business, set attendance records in the 80s. Stick around. They're having great matches in the 90s in Smoky Mountain Wrestling and back in the Memphis territory. They make their WWF debuts in the 90s. They're on a pay-per-view. Then the 2000s was the reunion circuit and the, Midnight Express reunions with the rock and roll matches where it was like, okay, that's their fade off into the sunset. It's 2019. They have been in the Crockett Cup on pay-per-view. They just wrestled for New Japan. They're the NWA World Tag Team Champions, and they're fucking charging more money to wrestle than they ever have in their fucking life. So I'm happy for them, even if I didn't know them. It's incredible. And I don't see how they have the fucking patience for it. If nothing else, nobody's saying that they're still as fast as they were in 1986, but I can't believe Ricky's still doing them fucking dives. It's amazing. Anyway, and the biggest star that was made at the taping was a mysterious wrestler known as the Masked Question Mark. And the studio audience decided that they were going to get this fucking guy over, and he was the hit of the fucking night. So I'll let you see it as it unfolds. But that's what it was. It was studio wrestling. There were no 30-minute matches and pay-per-view matches because they'll save those for when they do a pay-per-view, which, by the way, is going to be on December 14th from the GPB studios in Atlanta. But
are you on that?
Apparently I am now. I just found out about it over the weekend. So we're still working these things out. But, I'm hooked now. But it's studio wrestling. Guys come out. They cut promos to get themselves over. They argue with each other. They hop in the ring to settle it, whether it's a match or a fight. They have matches to hit their finishes and get over. The studio audience is on top of the ring. You can hear everybody without the microphones. When they're talking or yelling in the ring, you can hear it, just like the old days. It was fun. I had fun, actually. I don't know that there was no 5-star matches involved, but everybody had fun doing wrestling.
So the people at home who grew up on studio wrestling, what will they be the happiest about when they see this, and what, if anything, will make them unhappy? What will be a surprise, or what would be different than what they expected?
I don't know that they would necessarily be unhappy with anything if they grew up watching studio wrestling. Maybe just that the favorite stars they had that were on the studio shows they liked aren't still around, but that's why we had the Rock and Roll Express. But what they will like is, once again, guys coming out just for no reason, cutting promos, and there's no entrance stage, and there's no pyro, and there's no music. Because how are you going to play music when you come out a curtain and you're 10 feet from the podium and 10 feet from the ring? Whether it was Gordon Soley, or whether it was Lance Russell and Dave Brown, or whether, Al DeRusha, or, who the AWA guys, whatever studio you grew up watching, like I said, this is reminiscent, but at the same time, back then, it was standard definition, if that, and rabbit ears, and the table cost $25, and the fucking set was a curtain sometimes. They've made this an up-tempo look with the retro logos and an upscale construction with the old-fashioned designs, if that makes any sense. So it might be too nice looking. I don't know if you really wanted to strip it down, but I think everybody will be happy with it.
How would you rank the job you did on commentary from, however you felt about it? And also, considering, I have to imagine a good portion, or at least some people on that roster or at that show working, haven't had studio wrestling for their entire lives. So did everyone get it? I mean, it seems like a simple enough concept, but in terms of how different it really is from the modern presentation of professional wrestling or sports entertainment, whatever we want to call it, did everyone get it? Did everyone get the simplicity of it and what it was supposed to be amongst the wrestlers?
Yeah, I think so, because one good thing is a lot of these guys are Southern boys. So if they didn't grow up with it, they've watched it, on YouTube. And Aaron Stevens did OVW. So, he's fine. And, a lot of the other guys, they prepared for this. And of course you still got to do it before you can ever find out. My job, I hate to rate myself, but it wasn't, I was still trying to find my way back in the groove. I think after the first show or two, it picked up a little bit, but I'm maybe a B. I don't want to give myself a perfect fucking score. Joe Galley did a good job. He had never been in that environment before. He did a good job, the NWA announcer. It was what it was. You'll have to see it. And I think, and the thing is, this wasn't a make or break situation where, the Wednesday Night Wars, all the pressure is on. Everybody's watching everybody. We've got to bring in stars. We've got to, blow the roof off. These were the first 8 shows what I always said was, when you start a promotion, first you just want to put your guys out there and get them over, let them talk themselves over, establish who they're mad at and why and what they want to do about it. And they did this excellently. It wasn't meant to be, to lead to some kind of blow off by the end of the evening. This is the first 8 shows. It's going to be a continuing series. So I think it's going to progress from here. Right. Anyway, but God damn it. Next time I go to Atlanta, can a bunch of people take Christmas vacations just so I can get down the fucking road unmolested? I want about 1.5 million of you to just move out for the weekend.
You know who just moved to Georgia? Jeff Baldwin.
Why is Jeff there? Is he running from the law again?
He retired.
What did he ever do to retire? I didn't know he ever had a job. I thought he was just the booker. No, I'm kidding.
He worked in the courthouse in Broward County, and now he's retired and decided to move to Georgia.
Well, boy, Baldwin, you're going to find out. You've made a questionable choice there. All right. Anyway, speaking of questionable choices, we have yet to make $100,000. You're aware of this, right?
Yeah, I'm aware of it.
What are you doing about it?
Well, did you hear the news earlier today as we're recording? The Mets have fired manager Mickey Callaway after 2 seasons. Very nice guy, clearly in over his head. Really didn't know how to manage in-game, made some of the dumbest moves I've ever seen. Anyone who complained about Terry Collins managing the bullpen could shut up, because this guy took it to a new level. So, that's the big news. Did that answer your query?
No, my query, I'll have you know that I'm querying for you right now. What the fuck? That didn't even approach answer my question. I'm talking about my bookie. I'm talking about our $100,000. I'm talking about the $100 that I sent you to bet in the big fucking super contest. We've been talking about it for weeks. I've read you these emails that the Cult of Cornette has sent in, talking about the push and the spread and the split and the fucking uneven parallel bars. I don't understand this goddamn shit, but we've explained that my bookie is running an online handicapping super contest where the first place is guaranteed to win at least possibly more, $100,000. It costs $100 to enter. And you pick 5 NFL games against the spread every week to climb the leaderboard and score your share of the huge cash prize pool, which I wanted to get my greasy, grimy, grubby fingers on. And because you're the internet genius around here, you were supposed to place this bet. But every week you said, well, I don't understand it.
Well,
I don't understand it. Well, I don't understand it, but it was my money.
But
you're supposed to be the smart one around here. Do some thinning around here, Brian Last.
Well, hold on now, Jim. If you remember where we left it last week, you agreed that I could find a champion in my stead, and I picked Mike Tenay. Unfortunately, over the last week, we have not heard from Mike Tenay. Maybe Donnie and Marie are opening up in Vegas or something.
No, wait a minute.
So
Did you try? Wait a minute. Did you try to contact Mike Tenay directly, or did you just announce on the show, "Hey, Mike, if you give me a call," like he's got nothing better to do than listen to us?
I know how big this audience is. I just have to say the name, and people should be calling me and getting in touch with me. I don't have to reach out.
Well, no, Mike Tenay is very reclusive these days. He doesn't just associate with just any old fucking riffraff.
Well, listen.
And so the average person on the street can't just walk up to Mike Tenay. You should have reached out to him directly.
Well, listen, Mr. Tenay, it doesn't seem like it's going to work out with Mr. Tenay. So, Jim, what I want you to do is use that incredible, vast knowledge of wrestling history, and I want you to tell me the biggest degenerate gambler you know of in the wrestling business, and I'm going to find that guy.
Well, we mentioned I wouldn't call him a degenerate, but if only Jackie Fargo was here.
Well, I'm talking about guys alive.
Well, and once again, Buck Robley used to hang out at the horse track all the time. Sputnik Monroe could probably win you or lose you a few dollars, but I don't know. Maybe we should go with somebody with an NFL background.
And by the way, on Mid-South shows, it got to the point where when Buck Robley was in the ring, Bill Watts would say, "You may have seen him down at Louisiana Downs recently."
Well, anyway, but my bookie is the right play. You bet, you win, they pay. They've got live in-game betting on every NFL game, rewarding player perks. And what you can do is they will double your first deposit up to $1,000. If you put in 100, they give you 100 to bet with. Use the promo code JCE. You sense a pattern developing here on JCE. But MyBookie Online, that's MyBookie, and use the promo code JCE, except if your co-host of your highly rated podcast can't figure out how to fucking bet because of all the pushes and the spreads and the splits and the what was that thing where it was 0.5?
That was
that
was part of the spread, I think.
Well, everybody's getting rich but us. All we got going on is the rent.
That's right. Well, we're going to get this straightened out. I am going to find the champion. We still have time to make all this money. I think we still have time to make all this money. And
when does football run?
It runs until January. Sometimes the first week of February is the Super Bowl, but I guess for our purposes, we would have to have everything set in stone by December, I would think.
Well, get a move on.
All right, I'm going to see what I do.
Put a fucking hitch in your get along there.
MyBookie, promo code JCE.
I've said that already. What do you have? While I go get me a cold drink so I don't have to hear you, because I have had no sleep and I'm very verklempt, so I don't have to hear you scream in my ears. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to get me a cold drink while you talk about your show.
This week on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, another fun-packed week. Kentucky Fried Wrestling returns this weekend with another great show looking at the Jerry Lawler-Andy Kaufman feud at KFRpod.com, or available wherever it is that you find your favorite podcast. Let me quickly remind you of the other shows on the network: Breaking Kayfabe with Baldrin and Barry, Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam and Sean Goodwin, The Studcast with Ron Fuller, the Mid-South Wrestling Television Review with myself and Mike Mills, and of course, John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight, Then and Now. All shows available wherever it is that you find your favorite podcast, or you can go to on Facebook, facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard, or on Twitter at Superpodcast. And right here next week on the Jim Cornette Experience, I'm going to make a big announcement about a new show joining the roster of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. And of course, the 605 Superpodcast.
I'm back.
The Mothership!
Oh, God damn it.
We're about a week away or so. I think I just blew out my voice. we're about a week and a half away from episode 100. It really is almost done this time, but I'm going to have a drink of water. 605pod.com are available wherever it is that you find the favorite podcast. The Mothership!
You choked me there. All right, should we talk about the Wednesday Night War? We quit flapping our gums and get to the meat of the matter here.
Yeah.
All right, here's what I did, because I thought, I'm pretty sure that NXT and nobody on it is going to do anything really fucking stupid, silly, phony, bad like that I'm really going to fucking hate. But there is a possibility that pockets could be seen on national television. So out of morbid curiosity, I watched what I thought might be the train wreck first, right? All Elite Wrestling. What about you?
I decided to do AEW Live, switching back and forth a couple of times, and then I DVR'd NXT and I watched that about 2 hours after AEW ended.
Well, I split it up with a good night's sleep because I was tired. I came all the way back from Atlanta and sat there and watched AEW, so I had to go to sleep. But anyway, and you might be surprised at some of this, but I'm going to go chronologically with my notes that I was writing. Some of my opinions may have changed during the course of the broadcast. But did you know that, did you notice that in their nice animated open with all the action and everything, 3 different people went through tables in a 30-second open?
I hadn't noticed that, no.
I hate it now. Why the fuck are they mad at the furniture? Can we just not have so many fucking tables? I used to love it when Fargo would throw a table in the ring a couple times a year. Anyway, they had a big crowd. Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone both looked good. I thought they did good jobs. JR was really motivated. He was on top of it. You could hear the old JR. Tony, obviously, Tony has not watched wrestling in 20 fucking years almost. So he's not going to, know the name of every hold and describe everybody's backstory, but he's good enough and smooth enough and done this enough that he can call wrestling and do just a nice job with it, right? God damn it, the fucking guy wore the mask on TNT. What the fuck?
You didn't really think he would unmask before they went to national TV after all.
I thought somebody would make him. And once again, they just it goes without saying, and here's Excalibur. No, I used to be a independent wrestler. No, I used to wrestle in front of 400 people in everybody's darling little promotion. No, I know the mass audience across the country thinks I'm an idiot because they've never heard of me. It's not like I'm Rey Mysterio standing here with no explanation, a suit and a mask. It's not Mil Mascaras. It's not El Santo. It's not even Mr. Wrestling 2. It's Excalibur. And whereas I've said that before, he knows all the backstories. He knows all the moves. He has a decent voice, a whole 9 yards, right? You could tell he was nervous here because he was green and awkward in a lot of spots, which is to be expected the first time you do TV of this level. But I can't root for him to get better because he looks like a fucking moron. So, and it's goofy where they don't need to have goofy. Anyway, the opening package for Cody and Sammy Guevara I liked it. It was sports-like. It was credible. They spent money on it. The shots they had of Guevara from the fucking helicopter or whatever. I mean, they spent money on this and it was produced very well, I thought.
Yeah, I thought it was an excellent package for the first match. Gave me some hope for the show. That it was no, seriously, that it was the first thing that we're going to see on that show. I thought the look was great. I really like how colorful the show was, and that really stood out, especially, there's 2 different experiences. The experience you had, where you watch one and then you watch the other, but I did flip back and forth a few times, and AEW, it stood out just how colorful it was in contrast to the darkness of NXT, to the point where if you flip back and forth, you want to stay with AEW. But if you started with NXT and you watched it all the way through, obviously you like it a lot better than if you're going from this colorful, exciting show to something where it's a little more subdued in terms of the loudness because it's a small room and it looks like a small room.
Well, yeah, I didn't even mind the small crowd or the look of it because they shot it, it was a nice wrestling show, and we're getting ahead of ourselves, but it was a nice wrestling show in a small building. But you're right, AEW did have the fucking advantage of it. It was just brighter and lighter and more color. And
I've never seen that much color. Like, I know it sounds like a silly comment. Everyone uses color for everything and there's strobe lights and explosions and shit. But it was filled with color. I mean, that's the only word I could use it. Just, they had those little explosions with the colors. it felt lively. There was something that did feel a little different and lively about it. I thought that was really good. And back to what you asked me, the promo video, I thought it was excellent. That's the way you want to start that show, is the first thing you see is a serious package building up a match with what are two serious contenders for the AEW title. Good job.
And also one more thing, on NXT, the introduction lighting where it's just the white spot over their head and dark. I get what they're going for, but when they're already in the smaller building and they already got the, fucking 60s Batman TV series color on the other show, bright, especially when the guys step out of their fucking mark and then they're just dark, right? So I'd brighten it up a little bit. But anyway, with Cody and Guevara, and I hate the fucking panda head. What is the panda head about? What's going on with that?
I don't know. The panda and the worst nickname. What's his nickname? The best ever. Which, I don't know. It seems silly when the guy's like, 19 or 20 years old and he has a name that's as preposterous as that. But other than that, I thought that the panda head is pretty silly. I don't get it.
They spent money on Cody's entrance. He looks great physically. The people were fucking just batshit over him. Brandy looks good with him. She's a nice part of the package. But here was my thing. They are treating Sammy Guevara like he's a star already. Sammy Guevara, he was announced at 184 pounds. He is pale white. He's, I guess, early 20s, and he looks like he's about 17. And he's very talented. But I don't know. Automatically, people were just not going to buy him against Cody. And I know that's what Cody had a great match with him to elevate him for. But give this guy the underdog treatment. Give him fucking a few months of television before you put him in this fucking spot. And later on, he gets in a bigger spot by the end of the show. But he just looks so young and so small and so pale. You need to give these guys a chance to get over with people rather than expecting an audience who's never seen this guy before and just looks at his appearance to take him like a main eventer instantly because he can work, but he still looks like that. What do you think?
I don't know. I'm not as critical of it as you are. I think the match itself, the match went a couple minutes too long. I know they were going from one near fall to another, but there were a couple where I was like, that should be the finish. And then they kept going. And the crowd was still into it. So look, what the fuck do I know? I'm just a wrestling fan.
Well, now that crowd was going to, if they sodomized Bambi's mother with a fishing knife, the crowd would have cheered it.
I don't know if they did, but if Cody did, they would certainly cheer it. But I think Sammy's good. I think he has something. I think he has an interesting look beyond the panda shit. But just in the ring, he looks like the kind of guy you may want to slap, you may want to punch, you may want to see him get his ass kicked. He's a little flashy. It elevated him, and it made a lot more sense considering what happens later in the show. I didn't have a tremendous problem with this other than I thought it went a little too long.
Well, here's my notes. Cody worked this like an old-time main event guy against middle babyface type of thing. Everything where Cody obviously was the guy that kept the attention on him, but he gave the guy a bunch. Everything made sense and looked good, except the dive spot with Brandy, I thought once again was too much for now. If he's going to wipe his own wife out, it should have been saved, I think, for a match with bigger stakes. But
not the first match on national television?
Yeah, no. Not the very first one. I'm surprised they didn't do it in the cold open. But Brandy's shot with the shoe on Guevara and then Cody's drop kick should have been the fucking finish. They had him, and the people thought it was the finish, and it would have been fucking. They would have been over the top. That's the one thing. Even Cody's, the All Elite Wrestling matches, invariably hit a big false finish where the people are ready and the place would blow, and then it's a 2 count, and they kick out, and then they go and they don't never get them back to that point again. Because then here, after that huge false finish, then they did a reverse superplex off the top and got a 2 count. And then Sammy Guevara does a big flip fly off the top for a 2 count. I wrote, I'm starting to hate this now.
Yeah.
And then the shooting star into Cody's knees, 1, 2, 3, thank God. They're always 2 or 3 false finishes past wow and into thank God. with almost everything they do. And I thought what's it going to take for Chris Jericho to beat Cody? If Sammy Guevara at this point in his life and I'm not even talking about the fact that the guy's not talented. He is. But you have to tell the people that have never seen him before that he's this talented for a while before they see some fucking 20-year-old kid taking the main event star, or one of them, to the goddamn limit and him having to use an atomic bomb to beat him. Referee Aubrey is great. I love her.
She's the best referee in wrestling right now, I think. She's fantastic.
And she's so official looking, and she has the body language and everything, and she's got that game face like, don't fuck with me. I like it.
She's tremendous. Tremendous, yeah.
I love that Tony Schiavone hugged Cody, and that was a nice nod to the past with Dream and World Championship Wrestling and everything, and then he shakes hands, and then here comes Jericho. Now we're cooking. And this is another reason why that it should have been Brandy pops this kid with the shoe and fucking, because especially they're going to do another angle later on where Sammy Guevara is going to get over. So pop him with the shoe, hit him with that drop kick and beat him, shake his fucking hand, and then here comes Jericho. But instead, the kid survives everything, and it takes, anyway. What does he call it? The code breaker he hit him with first?
Yeah, I think so.
But here's where, and I realized what they were doing after a second because I was sleepy. But he attacks Cody and fucking hits him with the shit. And then they kept the live shot at picture in picture while they went to commercial, so nobody would switch. And I've got to give it to him because I'm going to hate this picture in picture by the end of the show, but Jericho kept it fucking fresh. He went over, he cued Ref Aubrey to tell Cody to feed up for the second one. Then he the belt shot. Then he went out and got a camera and took pictures. Then he hit him with a chair on the floor. So you wanted to see that because you couldn't figure out, when's it going to be over? When's it going to end? So even if I'm watching on a fucking small screen and it's like a goddamn inch square, I'm trying to see what Chris Jericho's doing. Okay, that worked. Later on, it would quit working. But that was a great angle with Jericho and Cody, who should have had a more convincing win, especially with the angle they were going to do it afterwards. It's not like Sammy Guevara was going to be consigned to the scrap heap. Brandon Cutler at MJF. Can you believe they actually said, even if it's true, why do you give the guy this story? Yeah, he was a grade school friend of the Young Bucks, so they got him a job, is basically what they came out and said.
I couldn't believe that they said it the way they did on the air. I'm just thinking, are they trolling Jim when they say that they're hiring their friends?
And Excalibur managed to say, and that's all night everybody was saying the wrestling business instead of the sport of wrestling, or even the industry, as JR used to say. Excalibur said wrestling business 3 times in one sentence. Because he talks like a mark, because all the indie outlaw fucking announcers and all the indie outlaw fans, now all the indie outlaw wrestlers never learned how not to talk smart to people because they talk smart to everybody, to each other openly all the time. So they never learned the words and the terminology that professional announcers of our era, such as mine and Jim Ross's and even Tony Schiavone's, learned, which is, God damn it, work with. I hate they actually say that. He's worked with so-and-so. But anyway.
But to that extent, though, I think that's really valid. Has he had an opportunity? I mean, is this the first opportunity he would really have to be taught to not do those things? I mean, what chance did he have? Why
would you never not know to not do those things?
I agree.
If you had any fucking sense.
I agree with you on that. However,
no, that's nothing. He never came to Ohio Valley Wrestling. So if you didn't train at OVW in the last fucking 20 years, nobody learned this shit anyway. But that's the fucking problem. Bunch of marks talking to each other. Marks in and out of the business talking to each other. That's why they all sound that way. But anyway. Apparently, I wrote this down. Apparently, Brandon Cutler is another video game fuck.
I thought it was that guy from the Dark Order at first when he came out.
No, but anyway, MJF comes out and does a brilliant promo, gets over as a heel, and it was a great match to get MJF over. It was a heel working with a babyface. They didn't do too much. It didn't go too long. There was a nice little misdirection on the finish where the babyface had an out, but MJF still got over strong and won his fucking match. This was a fine segment. There was absolutely nothing wrong with that, besides the announcer stooging that the Young Bucks got their childhood friend a fucking job. I mean, and they said he left the business and the business and then came back. They could have said he left the sport and then came back.
He left the business and then he got the itch when he heard that his childhood friends found the son of a billionaire.
Yeah, but they could have easily said Brandon Cutler had given up on his wrestling career as a professional athlete, but he decided to give it one more shot and live his dream. They didn't need to tell everybody he was the Young Bucks' childhood fucking friend. Anyway, Chris Van Vliet then was at ringside with Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes. And I've met Jason Mewes, and he's a nice guy. And he likes wrestling. I didn't know that Kevin Smith was that big of a wrestling fan, but what the fuck happened?
He isn't. Now I know he isn't because he was like amazed years ago. He did an interview about his website. He's like, yeah, we have all these great things that are doing good. We even have a wrestling article called Kentucky Fried Wrestling. That's how Scott Bowden got his article started, was on Kevin Smith's website. He didn't know anything about wrestling.
Well, then he's plugging his fucking gimmicks or whatever, but what has happened to him? Back in the old days, they'd say he's got AIDS, but I guess that would be fucking rude at this point. But what the fuck? I know he was huge and should have lost weight, but has he gone the other way? Is he ill?
He had a big health scare. I don't know if it was a heart attack or what it was, maybe a year ago when he dropped a bunch of weight after that. He had a big health scare.
Whew. Anyway, out comes Jack Evans. Jack Evans and Angelico. I can't pronounce the Angelico, and then Private Party comes out. And I'm not trying to knock poor Jack Evans because he did tweet. He said, I like Cornette. I know he'll never like my style, but he acts like every time I meet him, he acts like it's the first time.
Do you remember meeting him?
But yeah. But no, I just always say the same thing. Good to see you. Whatever. I don't know. Anyway, I remember me. But this whole interaction was awkward and stagey, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Then they have a VTR of SCU in Washington in front of the White House with Scorpio Sky doing a Barack Obama and Daniels and Kazarian as Secret Service, and that was a nice vignette. I didn't have any problem with that. Okay, it's cool. They're in Washington. Do it right. I mean, it ain't earth shaking, but they did it well. But then they come back for the live interview with Tony Schiavone, and here comes the Lucha Brothers and fight and pull apart. It was almost like and I like those guys. I've said, especially Daniels, I've known forever, but this was so staged and by the numbers, and it was a standard thing. It was almost like it should have had the NWO out there going, okay, you guys have interrupted us. Now this is where we get in the pull apart. It was stagey, rehearsed sounding. It was all catchphrases. Nobody was actually mad and arguing with each other. And they did what the cliche wrestling fucking angle looks like. I mean, what did you think?
I recognize them to be talented workers, but I have to admit, I think SCU is so lame. It has go-away heat with me. It's just their promos are awful. To me, to what I like for a wrestling promo, their promos are awful. And I don't want to hear their clearly rehearsed, practice, fake-sounding promos. And I thought the whole segment just didn't do anything for me.
It was rehearsed.
Frankie Kazarian kind of looks like Barry Rose on steroids. You ever think of that? But anyway, but no, SCU, like I said, I know they're very talented in the ring, but on the mic, they're maybe my least favorite people in the business right now.
Do you think Sky may have been the best? He did a good Obama, but do you think has Chris Daniels been mentally wounded because all those years assholes like Russo said he needs more personality because he was just a great talent, and so now he's tried to be too personality?
I don't know. I mean, you would know better than me because you were actually there for a lot of that.
He was never a lighthearted fucking guy that would be assing off, in my opinion. I don't know. Anyway, But this whole, it was a by the numbers standard promo, interrupt, fight, pull apart, and it didn't, I need passion.
I do like the idea, though, that I guess similar to Nitro, even though it's similar to any kind of show, but just position-wise, where it was, they did that interview out in front of the crowd by like the set in the back, as opposed to something backstage or something in a.
Oh yeah, well, it's always better to do, as we'll get to in a minute, than to set up fake backstage areas. But Adam Page and Pac. At the start of the match, I hate it once again when two guys just take turns hitting each other with shit back and forth, forearm, kick, like they're just letting them. Both those guys look great. Adam Page in his own way, he reminds me of an old-fashioned baby face. He's got a thick body, but not, ripped. But Pac looks like a dirty old bastard. He's ripped. They look good physically. They took it outside and they brawled grudge match style. I like Adam Page's work. He reminds me, and don't shoot me when I say this, because I will explain further. He reminds me a little bit of Barry Windham. Not because he has any kind of the natural flow that Barry had. Barry was at, 6'6" and 280 or whatever, and he was ballet, right? But Page, he does everything well. All his work is good and solid, but he moves for a guy that size very well, and I like his shit. I still have yet to hear him really come out, and that's another thing. At this point, I watched NXT, last week, right? Or week before last we reviewed it. I've watched this show. I've seen some packages, and I've seen the one stagey promo where everybody does their catchphrases at each other and jumps each other. Does anybody come out and just cut a promo to get over and then not get in a fight? I want to hear Adam Page talk. I want to hear Pac. Somebody on the show said Pac. But I want to hear these guys talk and raise some shit. It's like the NWA shows were more talking than wrestling, and these shows are all wrestling and no talking. Can we all just get along? But their match was good athletic shit that looked good, and they didn't rush it. They did that picture-in-picture thing during the break, which I was tiring of because it's so fucking tiny. I got a 72-inch screen. It's tiny compared to the commercial. But when they came back, two things that Page did bothered me. His snap spine buster, instead of the Arn style, he picked him up and straight fucking down without going to his knees. Pac landed mostly on the back of his head. And then they immediately went and did a pop-up power bomb, and he dropped him. That's so much impact. And it's harder to work that snap spine buster and that pop-up power bomb than it is regular ones. And there's no reason to just do that and pound the fucking guy over and over. Page did the moonsault outside to the floor, but then at least threw him right in and tried to cover him. And then they did that real good timing-wise referee distraction, low blow mule kick spot. And then the fucking nice flip splash off the top that Pac did on the Page, and that submission. It was a good little fuck finish. And it was nice. I liked that match mostly. But I still want to, I haven't heard from these guys. From the not rehearsed shit or packaged stuff, but just come out and fucking argue with each other. Somebody need the Jimmy Valiant, Jerry Lawler argument from Memphis TV that's on YouTube. That was an argument completely off the fucking cuff. Nobody can do that shit anymore. What'd you think? I know you're not strong on Adam Page.
No, I like the finish. Let me start with that. I liked it when they did it to Omega. I like it here. It puts Pac over strong. He has a good look. I'd like to hear some promos. I'd like to see him destroy some more guys. They're doing something with him. I'm interested. I don't get Page to the point where I hated this match. It took me out of the show. I feel bad saying this because I know what you think of him, and I feel like I'm maybe missing something, but there's like an inherent blandness.
Well, okay.
And
I've got it. You said that, and I've got it. What we're not looking at, the difference in what we're looking at. I'm looking at what Page can do and what I could do with him or what somebody else could do with him, and you're just looking at what they're doing with him.
Well, I'm trying to get in. Sometimes you watch a guy and you hear enough about him, and people are like, oh, this guy's a great wrestler, that you watch him and you're like, I want to like him. I want to like this match. I want to get into it. And I've kind of had that attitude with each Adam Page match, and each time I have felt disappointed. I think other than the promo where he ripped the stitches out, there's been nothing I have liked yet. And, right now.
That's right. And he did that promo where he ripped the stitches out, but that was in a package. Yeah. I'd like to see him out in the middle of the ring in front of the people for an extended period of time, showing some fucking balls and some fire and talking and swearing some mayhem.
Love the finish. Match took me out of the show completely to the point where I was like, is this the time where I should go downstairs and get something to eat? Should I take a bathroom break? It really took me out of it.
No, that was the next segment. Fucking hell. I've said enough good shit for a little while. I'm gonna go back to the other direction. And even the criticism of the spine busters and etc., that wasn't bad. I just hate to see guys get brain damage. Next match was Nyla Rose, the Beast, and Riho. Did you see the South Park episode where they got Wing, the fucking America's Got Talent or fucking American Idol woman or whatever, to do a special guest thing? She talked like it, sang like that or whatever.
Susan Boyle?
No, Wing.
Wing.
It's a South Park episode. This Asian woman.
Oh.
Look it up whenever you get a chance. But anyway, fuck. She's a 98-pound Japanese schoolgirl. And she's against a 200-pound self-proclaimed Native American beast. As soon as Jim Ross had to acknowledge that they had just said that Riho had been a pro for 13 years, therefore she had turned professional wrestler at age of 9, when that had to come out of his mouth, this whole thing became hot garbage to me. It is destroying Nyla Rose that she is selling for this fucking Japanese schoolgirl. I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone. Britt Baker is doing color, which she was not suited for and did not have a very good fucking delivery of because she was fucking flustered and I guess didn't know what to say, had no personality whatsoever. But she's doing color, and Riho is going for the fucking women's title. What the, and even worse here in a second, but here's what I did. I fucking paused it and went in the fucking kitchen and I made me some New York strawberry cheesecake ice cream with fucking marshmallows and whipped cream on top, and came back and it was still going. So I kept it on pause and fucking waited a little while longer while I ate my ice cream, and then fast forwarded it. This went 14 fucking minutes. It went through at least one break. I didn't watch any regular speed, but I could tell by the gist of it that Riho was bumping Nyla Rose around like she was Chris Colt. And then Riho wins the match and is the women's champion. She is as big as a 9-year-old girl, which apparently I found out something else here in a minute. Because they bring out Michael knock it the fuck off and get the fuck off my television to interview her. And Nyla Rose attacks her, Nakamura, the Nakamura Corporation. They're terrorists. She lost him on a power bomb, but then got it back, and then is going to fucking attack Riho. And here comes Kenny Olivier to save Riho. Now it made sense. This is the goddamn 9-year-old girl that this fucking twit. And he has got a Japanese schoolgirl fetish, and there is something going on between Riho and Kenny Omega, a relationship, as they used to say, which is why he has nepotismed her into the women's championship with his buddy, the billionaire, because he's one of the executive vice presidents. How else can you explain...
Son of a billionaire.
How else can you explain having a 98-pound Japanese schoolgirl on your television beating your 200-pound monster while your fucking marketable babyface does color, and you've made your fucking legendary, expensive announcer Jim Ross tell people on national television that this woman was a professional wrestler when she was 9 years old. Everybody's credibility went straight down the porcelain throne in one fucking segment. He's fucking her. He's got to be.
Well, I don't know about that.
What the fuck? What the fuck? Or why? Why would you do something like that? He's nepotismed his way into another one there. The wives, the girlfriends, the school friends, the fucking boyfriends, the goddamn cousins, the fucking uncles. I don't know who. Everybody's going to be related. It's going to be like a Fuller family reunion. And, and here's the thing. I'm not saying that Nyla Rose has to beat every girl in the world because she's bigger than all of them. The best women's matches that I ever saw that were the monster heel versus, underdog babyface, and some of the best women's matches I ever saw of any kind, period, were Gail Kim and Awesome Kong. And they got it. And it's not that much difference, you might say, Cornette. Well, here's an Asian babyface girl and a fucking big monster. The difference is Gail Kim, besides the fact she was smoking fucking hot, besides the fact she looked like an athlete, she was in shape, she knew how to fucking work, she didn't do all that. She flew and did exciting babyface shit, but she wasn't a goddamn acrobat. She was still somewhat of a professional wrestler, and she was tough, and she didn't flip and flop Kong around. Kong took judicious bumps, sometimes of her own momentum or making. It made sense. I saw Kong beat the fuck out of Gail. I think she got hard weight at least once, and it added to the sympathy. And she was constantly trying to climb this big monster. It wasn't just a back and forth where they're obviously choreographed and working with each other, that this girl is a 200-pound woman is just flying around for this fucking kid. And Gail Kim and Kong did some of the highest numbers, ratings of the TNA Impact on Spike era, because Dutch Mantel had him basically it was wrestling instead of that fucking horse shit that the other guy did. So it's not that I hate women's matches or I hate big girls against little girls. It's that I hated this one because it didn't make any sense and it's fucking stupid. And Gail Kim wasn't involved because did I mention she was smoking fucking hot? Naturally. Didn't even have to wear makeup. Completely different than all the other girls. Should have been one of the biggest female stars in the business. Anyway. So that I'd saved some time, right? So I'm thinking, okay, they ran long, right? 2:15. Well, wait a minute. I didn't ask you what you thought of this fucking fiasco.
Well, remember when I said the Pac versus Paige match took me out of the show?
Yes.
It literally did. I walked out of the office. I decided to do a couple things in the house, say hello to Suzanne and the kids and get something to eat. I came back up for the finish and then the Kenny Olivier save, so I missed everything else. I didn't see it. And it's not a shot necessarily on the women's division or on Nyla Rose or Riho. Literally, it was just that last match took me out of it. I left, and I wasn't going to do what you did. I wasn't going to pause anything. I decided I wanted to treat it like the old days where it aired live. If I cared enough, I would sit down. If it made me want to leave the room, I wasn't going to pause or fast forward. I was going to leave the room and see what I came back on. And I came back on the finish. So I didn't see the match. I can't really judge it.
Well, there you go. But anyway, Kenny Olivier, if you see Japanese schoolgirls beating top quality female wrestlers, it's Kenny Olivier's fault. And the next match, coincidentally enough, the Young Bucks and Kenny Olivier against LAX and Chris Jericho. Did you notice anything from the entrances? Bucks and Omega came out together, LAX came out, then Jericho came out last. Did you notice anything from the entrances?
I actually missed the Bucks and Omega's entrance. I only saw Jericho come out.
Okay, he's the only one that looked like a fucking star. Here comes the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega with a confetti fucking pyro cannon and, paper flying in the air. But the Young Bucks, they're fucking grade school children in flouncy, frilly outfits. And Kenny Omega Looks like Kenny Omega coming down the fucking ramp.
Can I say something to you? Not too many people out there are going to understand this. There's like 8 people who may find it funny, but I thought it last night. I have to say it to you. The 2 Bucks. The one who's losing his hair. Which one is that? The blonde.
Blonde is Nick.
Nick. He's a good wrestler. If he did things a little different, he's really, really good. The other one, if you look at him, and obviously it's a little more hair, there's no gut, but he always kind of, I don't know if it's his gimmick or what, he always has that dull look on his face. Like, he looks like fucking Marty Gorman.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Next time you see him, tell me you don't see Marty Gorman.
And he's getting even cheekier. His face is getting wider, right? Yeah. Yeah, you're right. 8 people will get that one. But anyway, they start the match. I'm going to get this out of the way. I'm sorry if everybody has a problem with this, but I fucking hate Kenny Olivier's stagey, dramatic, jazz hands, pointing, gestures, Nureyev-like spinning and pointing and prancing and prissing and fucking waving and goofy facials. And it just, what the fuck? It's not a guy having a fight or a wrestling match or a contest. It's a high cliff diver making a graceful performance or a fucking ballet dancer or whatever. And it just, yes, he's fast and yes, he's athletic, but I hate his fucking wrestling because it all looks so fucking, it's not even like people sometimes said Ricky Steamboat sold so ballet-like, but it still looked pain incredible and it was body language but now it's just, look at me, I'm waving my arms in the air because I'm fucking calling attention to myself and all my prancing around like you little tiptoeing fucking nerd-faced video game fuckwit.
You know what? Because of you, I enjoyed this match far more than I probably would have normally, because as soon as Omega started doing his shit, I laughed at myself and I just say jazz hands. I ended up tweeting it out because I laughed so much. But then he kept going, and it wasn't like the fans were screaming or really getting into the energy of it. At least it didn't seem that way. Someone's going to say the audience was flipping out the whole time. It didn't come across that way at this point in the match on TV. And he's doing all this pointing at his faces, and I started losing it. It was so funny. It almost felt like he was doing it just for us.
Yes.
It was
it's
ridiculous.
A rib now. It's a rib now.
I can't not see it. As soon as he starts doing it, it's nonstop. It doesn't stop. And it gets sillier and sillier. And if you focus on just that, it makes him really enjoyable, not necessarily as a wrestler, but as some sort of weird, like, what the fuck is he doing? I ended up really enjoying watching him until he got beaten up because of that. It was hysterical.
Well, and you know what? And this will probably, more people will know this than the Marty Gorman reference, but I thought at one point during his fucking ballet performance, Kenny Omega wrestles and acts like Joel Grey on steroids starring in a Bob Fosse Broadway musical. Now, if y'all Google that, it's fucking hilarious. Google it. It's fucking with a little bit of Harpo Marx in the Coconuts that was on Broadway.
Wow, very impressive, Jim. Irving Thalberg.
Irving Thalberg, he was a genius, but the boy wonder. Anyway.
Bob Fosse.
Who gave you your finish, Kenny? Bob Fosse. Gregory Holder helped me work out my moves.
See, I see a little Esther Williams in there, actually.
Well, wait. No, you know what? Tony Khan is going to sell the fucking All Elite Wrestling to Busby Berkeley. All right. So for the movie buffs in the audience, you guys have a Woody right now. Anyway, so here's what happens. They're having this match, and then suddenly Kenny Olivier is in the ring, and suddenly Jon Moxley appears behind him. He acts like he doesn't know what's going on behind him. Then he turns around, and they get in a fucking fight.
Well, I got to stop you there, because his reaction to something happening behind him was interesting.
To not turn around.
Because the announcers made it sound like he senses something, like he had supernatural skills to know that someone was near him.
Well, no, the people are yelling that they're popping, obviously, so you'd be an idiot, which he is, but you'd look like an idiot, which he did, if you don't recognize that something's happened in the sight line of the entire arena, and since there's nothing going on in front of you, the only choice is behind you. So he gets on his face, something's going on behind me, but he doesn't turn around to figure out what it is. And then he does, he gets pickled. But then here, did you see who else was in the ring?
What do you mean?
Did you see who else was in the ring when Jon Moxley, who's not in this match, attacked one of the participants in the match?
The referee.
Of course, standing there looking at it.
That's right. DQs will matter in AEW.
Sports-based present, they could have gotten the referee out of the way. All the wild shit these guys do and are going to do. You mean the referee can't bail out on the floor to see if somebody hadn't fucking busted his ass and broke his neck, or can't be distracted or whatever, to where Moxley can come in because he wasn't laying Olivier out to get beat. They get in a fight and immediately leave the ring. If the referee's attention had been diverted for 10 seconds, you'd have never seen Jon Moxley in the ring, and then they're away from ringside, and the referee could have turned around and, well, where the fuck did Omega go? But then, while the match is continuing in the arena, but we don't see it, now they could have done picture-in-picture, but they didn't. Moxley and Olivier go to the back of the arena. They do a bunch of stagey, standard, outlaw, indie mud show back of the arena fighting that everybody does. And then Moxley they go to a fake VIP area that's obviously set. It's just, why is the VIP area that is adjacent to the arena lit for television? Why is the VIP area that is not even curtained off from the arena? You can see the arena over their shoulder. They just we're going to set up a VIP area. There's going to be a bunch of people in T-shirts standing behind the VIP area, but nobody actually sitting in the VIP couches, so that here comes, and it's lit for television, so that Moxley can DDT Kenny Olivier through a obviously sugar glass coffee table, where then they go to break. Chris Jericho surprise attacked Cody earlier in the program. They do it the exact same thing twice in the same show.
Well, first of all, they go to the break. You don't even know if the match is still going, because they didn't do the picture-in-picture. They go to the back.
Right. Yeah. So you know the match is still going because the match never ended, but you never see it going.
Right. You just figure, is that it? Are they going to cut away from the match? Are they going to come back to the match? They go to the break and they don't tell you what's going on.
Then they come back for the match part 2, where they do their endless flips and flops. And since the heels still have all 3 members and Olivier is gone, Jericho, being the smart one, stayed out of the whole fucking thing, except for he pitched in a couple of key spots, didn't get any on him. Then LAX sets up the fucking Young Bucks and Jericho pins Nick. The finish was perfect. That's exactly what they needed to do. And I'm not against LAX either. They do some good shit, but it was just, they'd already made the match stupid because there was not a DQ when the referee was standing there. Then they do all their flips and flops, which I've, actually zipped through a bit of. And then that was the perfect finish. But then Cody makes the big save when they're getting the heat on fucking the Bucks. Then here comes Guevara back in and kicks Cody in the balls, which was great. Then here comes Dustin, and he makes a save. Then here comes Jake Hager, and he hits and lays everybody out. Everybody out. I didn't give a shit about the match. The finish of the match and the angle afterwards was fucking great. And the heels getting lengthy heat was great. And Jake Hager being a 6'5", 260-pound grown man, legitimate athlete, that was great.
Street clothes, that was great.
Yes, in street clothes, because why would he be dressed to wrestle when he didn't wrestle? Nobody runs out in their street clothes anymore. They got heat. It was like going off the air on Mid-South Wrestling. The heels are kicking the shit out of, the baby faces. And Guevara, that's another reason with what they did with him here. It's another reason he didn't need the last 2 fucking false finishes with Cody, because he comes back and gets his heat right back as he switches and becomes this evil minion in the fucking, little group they got going there. So a lot of times, this show was more good than bad.
Yeah.
But, truthfully, a lot of it was good. But All Elite's problem is one that NXT has even more of, is that they think every match has to be the fucking main event at WrestleMania.
I remember going to shows where every match didn't have near falls, where you were lucky if one match had near falls or a near fall. And now it's every match.
The Midnight and Rock and Roll usually had one or two false finishes. Usually the first false finish would bring the heel in for a save and bring the other babyface in for the four-way. I remember when we got really fancy in the 80s, or in the, in the 80s and on pay-per-view, and in 90 with the Southern Boys, we had like 4 false finishes. My God, that was unheard of. But it just go out, have a match, and do the finish and the angle. The point is more important. The point you want to get across, and the finish and the angle and the way you want to leave them, their thought process is more important than the fucking match in a lot of these cases. And save the classic matches for your big shows where they should expect classic matches and make them pay for it. But anyway, All Elite Wrestling was a good television show with certain problems that we have mentioned. But you know what they didn't have?
Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy.
Well, actually, I would have liked to have seen them, but I'd had to have seen Marco Stunt with them, apparently, so that would have killed that. So thankfully, they weren't on television.
Waldorf.
Well, hold on. If they'd get rid of the fucking small child and not bury probably what's going to be their most popular tag team, it'd be great to see Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. And we didn't see Waldorf. But you know what else we didn't see? We didn't see My Little Dog Pockets.
Not yet.
We didn't see Jelly Janela.
Not yet.
We didn't see Jimmy Havoc. Junkie Jimmy Havoc. It looks like he went to give blood and forgot to say when. We didn't see Marco Stunt. We didn't see any Baby Oil. We didn't see Sunny Kiss. We didn't see anybody super kicking the goddamn, production assistants. We didn't see the Legless Man.
Librarian.
The librarians. You think they're listening to this program? Everything that we've said shouldn't be on a fucking show. Guess what? It wasn't on a fucking show. Maybe somebody stepped in and said, "What the fuck are you doing?" We shall see. But anyway.
Wait, let me stop you right now, just to wrap up the AEW show. Who would you say was, I hate to use the word performer, because I know you hate that word, but who is the MVP for the AEW show? And who is the least valuable player? And how would you rank the show on a scale of 1 to 10, or on a
I ain't
thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle? Like, how would you?
No, I ain't going to numerically rate it. It was a good show. It was better than I expected it was going to be. I think Cody was the fucking star because everything was revolving around him. The beginning match, beginning package, the ending fucking angle. He was prominently featured. He did the best. Cody's was the best standard pro wrestling performance. The only thing is he gave the guy he's working with too much, which is not the worst thing that anybody's ever fucking done, but he was trying to get him over.
What do you think the guy's working with weight belts on?
I've never got that. I don't really get that. I know it's his gimmick and I don't know where it came from, but I don't really get the weight belt thing except in a bunkhouse match. Well, you know what? There you go. He wears a weight belt because that's what they used to wear in the bunkhouse matches. There you go. So now I kind of like it. A subtle nod, very subtle. I didn't even get it. But Cody, and then I really liked Pac. And like I said, that fucking the finish and the angle afterwards and the 6-man was great. But it just, the only silly phony shit. I mean, even SCU and the Lucha Brothers, they weren't winking at anything. It was just they were doing shit by the standard pro wrestling angle, by the numbers, modern pro wrestling angle with catchphrases. But, the stupidity with Olivier and fucking Moxley in the fake VIP area, they could have hurt Kenny Omega without going to that much trouble and it obviously being see-through. But it was a good show.
Someone make a GIF if you can of like the minute of Omega right before he got attacked, of all the pointing and everything. It was so funny.
Yes.
It was over the top. And I thought, all right, he's doing it for a second. And then 1 second turned into 2, turned into 10, turned into 15. And he kept pointing and it's like he's twitching. And I don't know what the fuck is going on with the guy. You said it before. It's like the Ultimate Warrior at times. And please, someone make a GIF, please.
Anyway, it'd be a gift if you'd make a GIF. All right. Did you finish your final thoughts there?
I thought it was a good show. Looking forward to next week. Like I said, I love the look of it. I thought it was very colorful. I like the commentary. I thought that I'm not one who subscribes to what I think is revisionist history, that Schiavone had a good decade of the 90s. I thought I didn't think Tony Schiavone brought much to the table after 1992. With that said, I think this is exactly how you use him. You use him more in line to how he was used with Crockett Promotions. He's a sports guy. Let him work like that. Don't make him the lead commentator. I don't see Tony Schiavone as a lead commentator type. He was perfect, though, for the way they used him. I thought he was great. I thought Jim Ross had a good night. I didn't mind Excalibur, although I thought he looked ridiculous, obviously, when they showed him on camera. Good night. I'm looking forward to next week's AEW show. And there's a lot of guys that we know they have.
Holy boy, howdy, did you ever think we'd say that on the program?
No, but, and you know, here's where it may go awry. There's a lot of guys we just talked about that we know they have on the roster that weren't on this show, and are they just going to throw them all out for week 2, or how's it going to be rolled out? But that's going to be where it gets interesting, when they start rolling out the pockets. And see, Joey Janela, at least you can kind of do something with him. He could be like a heel that you just want to see get his ass kicked. But we'll see. We'll see how they roll everything out. But good week 1. I got to give it nothing but a positive.
NXT. I thought they had a good cold open, which they're going to be difficult to beat on the production edge. It was the voiceover, the editing. Even though All Elite's spending some money, and Keith Mitchell, those guys, they do a good job. You know, this is a fucking you're fighting a network television facility when you're fighting the WWF. Okay, will this be controversial? And bearing in mind that I've known Jim Ross for 35 years, he's an excellent friend of mine. Mauro Ranallo was the best announcer of the night. JR has the voice, and JR has the gravitas, and when you hear JR, you have the memories, and he knows how to do television, and he knows how to make things sound big, and he knows when try not to get any on him. But, once again, Mauro just has that energy, and he knows everything, and he says everything, and he's a whirlwind. I thought he was the better announcer of the night, and I thought Nigel was better than either Tony or Excalibur.
I've said it before, Nigel's excellent, and Mauro has been the best commentator in wrestling for several years. I mean, at least since his New Japan run. Great, they're a great team, and Beth Phoenix, I thought, did really good, too.
Yeah, and Beth is better than Excalibur, because at least she doesn't look stupid. So the first match being the NXT title match, and they did the commercial-free thing, because they're going to keep people in the first half hour and watching, a match they want to see to try to keep them away from AEW. We know that. We talked about the thoughts. It's a smaller arena. It looks good, except like you said, it seemed darker, and they would darken it on purpose with the effects and everything.
And if you went back and forth, like I said, if you were flipping channels, if you're going back and forth, and for me, it was channel 551 and 552, so I could just go up and down.
Oh my God.
That's when the difference in the two shows really stood out. And like I said earlier, if you started with NXT and just watched it all the way through, you got one experience. But if you went back and forth, it was like the tale of two shows.
Yeah. But anyway, I have no problem with a smaller building. It's the OVW Davis Arena concept. And I have no problem with that. And if they keep giving them good shows, they'll keep the people. This was the first full Matt Riddle match that I have seen. I've heard about him. We haven't sought it out, right? And he hadn't been on, as I recall, any of the other NXT shows that we have reviewed, was he?
I don't believe you've ever reviewed one of his matches from NXT, no.
Well, okay. This was the match of the night of both shows to me.
Easily.
This was the best modern style wrestling, incredible stuff that looked good and still made sense. They had a pace that was quick, but they still sold shit. You can tell that these guys have had high-level training. They didn't do any indie bullshit. Great strikes, great wrestling. They had nice false finishes, athletic, the whole, and everybody knows I'm an Adam Cole fan, but Matt Riddle, carried it too here. And finally, Adam Cole wins. I am so happy for him that he has always worked so hard and been so serious about this. And, and he's in this position now. So this was the match of the night. And then here comes fucking Finn Balor. What did we say last week? if NXT even starts losing the ratings race, they can just say, guess who's going to be here next week? John Cena, The Rock. They can do anything they fucking want, right? So it's going to be interesting. See how many people they bring over. But yeah, that was the match of the night.
You know, on the same wavelength as Adam Page, I don't get Finn Balor at all, or Prince Devitt, whatever he was. I mean, I've seen him in some good matches, especially when it was a big guy against him, but he's another guy I just don't get the wild acclaim for.
Well, and I was a fan when he was Prince Devitt. I wanted to bring him to Ring of Honor, but obviously we were going to get Sinclair to spring for fucking international plane tickets and paperwork. However,
really,
he's perfect for this audience. I see what you mean, but this audience wants all the young guys that are going to do the, you know, all the shit that they want them to see him do, right? They don't want the fucking, the Trevor Murdoch, not this audience. So I can see why that he would be, and also he's somebody, let's face it, that they can move off the main roster and not hurt themselves.
Yeah.
But he might even be more important to this group than to the main roster. They did the package on Shayna Baszler and Candice LeRae. More on that later. The Velveteen Dream. Remember, I liked the match and I was kind of okay with the gimmick. It was a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
I liked his match better than this.
No, this was awful, I thought.
It was you couldn't almost see anybody. Fog, blue lights, a couch with girls, and stagey, Vegas-y, couldn't work up hatred for it necessarily, but what the fuck? It just,
I agree.
Well, there you go.
And by the way, on the topic of the Adam Cole, Matt Riddle match, that's 2 matches within whatever, a month, 6 weeks, whenever we saw the Walter match. 2 NXT matches that I've seen recently that were phenomenal. 2 of the best matches I've seen in a while. So
and completely different. Completely different,
yeah.
Which is going to be important, as we'll talk about in a minute. The Leo Rush package against Drew Gulak. We know Leo Rush apparently is mentally incompetent because he's always getting heat on himself. He can talk his ass off. He's a fucking midget, and he should be a manager. We ran through that a while back. But on the other hand, he has personality and shit, whereas Drew Gulak, I thought he kind of stone-faced and monotonistic. Anyway, that was just a package. So how do you pronounce Shirai's Io?
Io, yes.
Io Shirai and Mia Yim.
Yes.
Okay. I know Mia Yim. She looks good in that gimmick she comes out with. I like her. I've seen a lot of fucking girl wrestling lately, and this was long, and I fast-forwarded. And then there was Nash and Hall at ringside. What do you think? So did you see this one, or did you go back to the fucking family?
I watched it. I had it on, but that was kind of one of those matches where I got distracted. I ended up on my computer. I ended up looking at tweets, different things. So had it on in the background, nothing personally against it, but it didn't capture me. Especially, I mean, look, the other tough thing is if you start to show off at one of the best matches I've seen all year, it's hard to it's going to take a little while to get me back into the show at that level.
Yeah, yeah. And also, and it's not going to be popular, but let's face it, folks, you shouldn't have, you don't need to have, and nobody wants to see as many women's matches as men's. It doesn't have to be equal. Because still, right?
Yeah.
Let's fucking let's keep some perspective here. Nash and Hall were at ringside, poisoning a new generation of minds. The Tegan Knox package. This was my favorite package. And it was one of the girls. But it was real. She's hurt. She was crying. They talk about it. They showed carrying her out. The will to come back and rehab the knee, the whole 9 yards. I love shit like that. So it was a great injury package. They should do that when the guys get hurt. They should do some shit like that.
Yeah, great package. It was really something when I never saw the match where she got hurt, but when they show her on the mat and she's kind of doing the X herself, but
yeah,
she's in so much pain she can barely do it. That was like, wow. I mean, it was a great package. Great package.
And it gets people's emotion. Then they can tell, even if they know wrestling's a work, that, okay, she was really fucked up. That poor girl. It gets sympathy, whatever.
Yeah.
Johnny Gargano versus Shane Thorn. Mauro Ranallo cracks me up, and especially he's loyal to the soil. He's NXT won the announcer battle. And I can't believe I'm saying that. Their girl referee is not as good as girl Hebner. Here's where we started going south.
But nobody is, to be fair.
Well, okay. Here's where we started going south, because that 30 minutes they got commercial free at the beginning, they're making it up at the end.
That's right.
And they go to break in this match, and they've got the picture-in-picture, but it's so small, and the guys are so small. I fast-forwarded through the fucking break. What this was a wrestling school training match at a high level. They did moves, they rolled around, they did mat wrestling. There was no facials, there was no emotion, there was a concentration on the performance. It was two guys that I've never heard talk. Again, don't care about. Two small guys that are good athletes, I don't care. It was kids wrestling, high-level indie stuff that would be like their ultimate tryout match that they think would try to get them a job. They did too much, which left less for the stars to do, because neither one of these guys is going to sell you any tickets in the immediate future. I know Johnny Gargano is popular with that crowd. We've mentioned his monotone of face and lack of any kind of fucking emotion before. I would have loved all they did everything they could do back and forth to each other. Nobody healed. They took one bump after another, dozens of head kicks, the same old shit. I would have loved to see a body slam, a backdrop, a hip toss, just a regular vertical suplex. How about a fucking hold for more than 7 seconds? This was high level indie shit. What do you think?
It was an okay match. It didn't really stand out. It didn't do much for me. I think Gargano has really good big matches, although, again, those, and there's going to be people who hate me saying this. To me, sometimes those go a little long and have way too many false finishes and then get have some hardcore moments in the middle of it and then get back to the match. He's good, but, this is just a match. I don't know if this was supposed to mean more. I guess, they're trying to do something with Shane Thorn. He looked all right, but didn't really stand out much to me.
A little pitchy for me, dog. All right, the women's title. Candice Larae versus Shayna Baszler. I'm conflicted. As I've said, I've seen a lot of girl wrestling lately, and here comes more girl wrestling. Some of it's been good, some of it's been bad. I don't care about Candice Larae because of her previous associations, as we have mentioned. She teamed up with the Dick guy. She did spots in bars. I don't know really what she's done because I've never watched her on purpose, but I know if I say anything good about her, she does have a cute smile. But if I say anything good about her, somebody's going to send the fucking tape of her sticking her thumb up somebody's ass or fucking an invisible something or whatever the fuck. So I'm not going to ever praise her because of the people that she used to hang around with.
But to be fair, to be fair though, and unfortunately I'm realizing this, the list of people who aren't on videos like that is getting smaller by the day. Even guys from the 90s or guys who are still around from a previous era. More and more guys are doing it to the point where it becomes harder to just dismiss everyone just because everyone is doing it. I'm not saying I agree with that, but
yeah. Well, this one was in on the ground floor. But here's the thing. I wanted to see Shayna Baszler because she's real and she's legitimate, and I haven't seen her, in a regular full-length match yet. So I was trying to watch, right? But then they start, and then they go into a long break and only part of the break was picture-in-picture. Sometimes it would be, sometimes it wouldn't be. I see enough to see that Shayna Baszler is a good heel. She's mean and aggressive. I wrote down a question. Why don't any of the heels pull hair and rake eyes anymore? Choke behind the referee's back. That'd be nice. But then they've come back. They came back in the second segment, and Shayna Baszler hits this girl with a side salto off the second rope as a break spot. So already, this MMA specialist that's fought at a high level in mixed martial arts has gone through 2 segments with this little blonde girl that you could tell legitimately couldn't fight her way out of a paper bag. Then they go to another picture-in-picture break. This could have been a decent match in 6 minutes. But they went 3 fucking different segments with broken up with 2 breaks. Finally, Shayna Baszler won, and it was way too fucking long. Now the girls have to go forever. Now, with your women's division, as I said, I'm sorry, this is just facts. There shouldn't be equal number of women's matches as there are men's, because the men are still your steak and the women are your potato. With the women's division, pick a few stars and smash them over the other girls, because there are also not as many convincing, believable athletic workers in the women's division anywhere as there are the men's, because there's more men to begin with. But pick a few stars and on TV, smash them over the other girls and have the long classics with the top girls against each other on pay-per-view. It is not doing you any good having middle card ladies matches or middle card ladies in a match going 15 minutes. A little bit of a package of Walter and Imperium. At this point, I wrote down, can we please have a live or VTR just promo, not a package? Can any of these guys talk for a minute straight? The Velveteen Dream was the only promo, and that was pretty fucking sad. Yeah. Pete Dunne wrestles Danny Burch. I've currently realized now that I can't tell who they're pushing because all the matches are so competitive, you can't tell who the fucking stars are. They go to another break with picture-in-picture.
Pete Dunne kind of looks like Becky Lynch without a shave.
I like Pete Dunne and the bruiserweight thing, whatever, but here's my problem now. Here's what I'm starting to realize. In the AEW NXT contrast, at least AEW, the matches were mostly different, or where they weren't, we called them out. But the NXT matches are all looking similar. And they're Dunn and Burch, they're doing it good. But I was tired of the nonstop, constant bumping off of some kind of shit over and over, where there's not at least a decent lengthy set of heat and then a big babyface comeback. It's just back and forth over and over. Finally, Pete Dunne wins. They have a blackout. Then here comes Damian Priest and lays out Pete Dunne. And still doesn't say anything. And if I'm a new viewer, I don't know why that happened. What do you think of these guys? Or can you even remember the difference now?
I mean, I think Pete Dunne's all right. Obviously, I've seen a bunch of him. I hadn't seen the guy who did the run-in or the guy that Pete Dunne wrestled. I don't think I've seen before. But, you know, this is the like you said, the difference between the two shows. AEW, it felt like more, I didn't want to miss anything. I didn't know who was going to come in. I didn't know who was going to run in. It was bright. It was fun to watch. There were matches on the NXT show I just didn't care about at all. I was completely tuned out about it. And unfortunately, this was one of them.
I'll tell you, I thought the same thing, but the opposite in some cases. And I'll tell you why. I thought that the better show overall was All Elite Wrestling, but I thought that NXT had the 2 high points.
Yeah.
And we're coming up on it. Street Profits and Fish and O'Reilly. To quote Charles Dickens, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. They came as Street Profits, the entrance Whale, although they called him Wally. I thought that was the one Court Bauer kept promoting, Whale Mania, right? Who's Whale? But he's Wally. Wally wrapped Street Profits to the ring. I fucking hated it. It was fucking horrible. It's fucking rap. I don't know why the red plastic cups are a deal. I despised all of this, right?
Rap's okay, but that did kind of suck.
And what's the red plastic cup got to do with anything?
Oh, you see, it's popular with the kids. They put codeine in those cups, and then they drink it and they get really high and they have seizures.
Okay, so we're glorifying children abusing over-the-counter drugs so that when I get fucking sick and have a goddamn cold, I've got to goddamn have an axe to get into the fucking case that contains the cold medicine.
Scissorp, I believe they call it.
All right. Here comes O'Reilly and Fish. I love both these guys, especially Kyle O'Reilly, and Kyle has grown up. In Ring of Honor, we always knew he had it, right? But he was so painfully thin, red-headed, freckled, fishy white. You know, he was a kid. But now he's grown up and he matches his work now. His work was always great. He just looked too young. I made this note. Street Profits did a backslap tag, so I'm pissed already. Then later on, fucking Fish and O'Reilly did the same thing. I got pissed at them too. But anyway, they started the match. Then they did another picture-in-picture break. Then they come back. I like that O'Reilly works a different style than everybody else. He's got the MMA influence, but that cartwheel butterfly suplex thing that he does, and he just works differently, and it works for him.
That's one of the reasons I like Matt Riddle so much earlier in the show. He works different than everyone else.
Yes. And he's an MMA influence also, but it's completely different. So they weren't just trained by the same people and do the same thing. Anyway, the Street Profits are a decent babyface team. I think O'Reilly and Fish are a really good heel team. They had nice teamwork and tags, except for the backslap tag. And Kyle, I'm disappointed in you because I think we've had that fucking seminar. Fish is aggressive and mean looking. They did do one awkward spot where the two heels kept having to beat fucking Montez Ford up right in the middle of the ring and burying Dawkins on the apron because I think they were trying to remind Ford what was next because they were calling it. Then they do another break. So they've had match break. And I wrote, I have about given up on this fucking match because of the breaks. You couldn't follow it. And then they announce at 10 p.m., we will continue till the match is over. Right? Which would have been great, except that on my DVR, when I set the recording, it said it was going to go to 10:15. Yeah. So, but this is the other half of the dueling high points. If it had just been this segment of this match, this was my second favorite match of the night behind Riddle and Cole. If it had just been this segment.
And if I could just interrupt you real quick, this is when I originally tuned in. I watched the show later on DVR, but after All Elite ended, I was actually in the mood to watch more wrestling at that moment, and luckily I had that overrun, so I got to see the end of the match and then watch the whole thing after the fact.
Okay, so when you had just seen this was a hell of a match till you saw the first half, right?
It was fantastic. Like you said, the breaks, it killed a lot of matches, but it really hurt this match. Yeah.
Plus, they did too much shit, and it was one of those deals where, remember when Michael Elgin and Davey Richards had a match WrestleMania weekend 2012 in Fort Lauderdale where people said it was a 5-star match and Michael Elgin should be the next champion?
Yeah.
Everybody was raving about it, right? And I, at the time, was dealing with all of our technical issues, so I heard the people live going ballistic and watched the last bit of it, but I hadn't been able to see the whole thing. When I went back and watched it, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. That was one of these matches that was either not very good at all or just pedestrian at best until something happened at about the halfway mark that not only woke the crowd up, but woke the wrestlers up. Which in that case with Elgin and Davey Richards was they tried to do some kind of belly-to-belly suplex off the top rope, and both of them almost fell right on top of their fucking heads and broke their necks, right? And the people went whoosh, and the guys got up, and sometimes when something like that happens, you get up and start swinging harder because you're like, I'm okay. And that turned into a classic. The overall match was not even really good, but the last half of it was fucking incredible. This was the same thing. Fish takes a big backdrop over to the top to the floor. They do nice double team shit. They worked on Montez Ford, slowed it down after they blocked the hot tag by jerking Dawkins off the apron, the old heel tactic. Then they got an actual set of heel tag team heat on Montez Ford. Then they did a nice hot tag and had a big comeback by Dawkins, or Dawson or Dawkins.
I'm not sure. The big guy. You're talking about the big guy.
The big guy.
He was good. I liked him.
Yeah. The big comeback, it was a little choreographed. They got in a couple of positions where they had to, it was a little, but still it had passion and emotion.
Yeah.
And then they went into an extended finish sequence that I wrote down. This was nice and Eddie Graham-ish. They had twists. It was a convoluted finish. Guys were up and back and forth, and they did a good job on it, and they nailed it. And the false finishes had them. So that was that segment, not even the entire match, but just that last segment was the best tag team stuff that I've seen in ages anywhere. The previous segments were all broken up, but that last bit that they did was fucking excellent. It was revival worthy, I thought.
I have to tell you too, I love this faction of Fish, O'Reilly, Roddy Strong, and Adam Cole. They're great together.
Well, and they should have called them Ring of Honor. Boy, I wonder what talented genius was able to recognize that all four of those guys were great and push them as big. But anyway, so that was good. And then Adam Cole comes out to luxuriate and is confronted by Tommaso Ciampa. And Tommaso has a great look, the beard, the bald head. He was going so good as a heel. And he's had so many injuries. It's a shame because he had injuries before he even got to Ring of Honor back in 2011 or whatever. Had a serious knee, I think, an ACL reattachment. And he's had another one, I think, and he's had the neck thing. But you can look at it like it's a shame he's had so many injuries because he would, and he knows this, unfortunately, he would be so much farther along if he hadn't had. But also, this fucking freak keeps recovering. And the rehab he does is intense. And the fucking determination that he's got. He has come back from some serious fucking injuries and continues to do freaky shit. And he's freaky strong. And it just, so I hate that he's been hurt so much, but goddamn, I've never seen anybody come back regularly so quick and so strong and so in shape from serious shit like this. So you got to give him that. But anyway, that last segment, All Elite Wrestling was a better show, and the start and finish of NXT was the best thing of the night. That's what we've got. So we said we wanted them to make it a dogfight, and they're trying. There was good and bad, and they attempted as best they could to keep our attention, I guess.
For me, the guy I enjoyed the most the whole night, the MVP, was Adam Cole for both shows.
Yeah, I can see that.
I was going to ask you who you would pick for both shows. You said Cody for AEW before, but if you were going to look at both shows and say, for the overall night, who was the MVP, who would you pick?
Yeah, I think, well, also because Adam had that nice promo. Did we even skip over that in the notes where they talked and we finally got a promo? He talked right after I was saying, did we get any promos? He did an excellent job with that, firing up the Undisputed Era. He had a great match and did a great deal at the end. So, yeah, he may have been, it'd be Cole or Cody. For Cole for the NXT, Cody for All Elite, and one of the two of them for the night, in my opinion.
AEW, you said you picked for the better overall show for the night.
AEW start to finish was the better overall show because NXT, the matches started just, especially toward the end when they were being broken up with the breaks, but also high speed bumping back and forth. You know, the reason why I liked Cole and Riddle was because they did all the big bumps, but they actually sold and registered realistically what they were doing. And the end was a great Eddie Graham type finish with twists and turns and a little angle. And in the middle was a lot of matches where they did moves to each other back and forth over and over and over again. To me. Anyway, so next week, are we going to do this again, I guess?
We've committed for, at a minimum, the month of October.
Oh, boy. Well, we shall see. Although if Jelly Janela or my little dog Pocket shows up, we may cut that time. But so far, they're doing the best they can on both sides to make this interesting. So we're going to keep it up. And now, do you think 17 people are going to listen to this show? Because I didn't really just tell anybody they should be boiled in fucking oil. So do you think anybody's going to get the fact that I actually like something when it's worth liking?
No. I think the headlines will be Jim Cornette hates female wrestling. Jim Cornette hates Japanese women. Let me think. What else would people? Jim Cornette hates jazz hands.
Yes. Hashtag JC hates jazz hands. I want that trending. All right.
Hey, Jim, if I could just say something real quick here at the end of the show. This past Monday on the drive-thru, we had a special omnibus, all in to all out. It ended up being compiling all the various segments from December of 2017 when we first started talking about Cody and the Bucks trying to do something until just this past month, September. It ended up being about 10 hours.
Oh my God.
So we released it as 2 parts, part 1 and part 2, but the entire 10 hours is going to be up on YouTube within the next couple of days. So stay tuned for that. By far the longest omnibus we've ever done, but just wanted to let everyone know it's in 2 parts for the drive-thru this week, the omnibus.
Okay, now I can't remember all the things I've said in almost 2 years. Do I come out looking like I've predicted the future, or do I come out looking like an idiot?
You make a lot of predictions that ended up bearing out to be true. You know, it's funny when you go back to the first time we talked about them trying to start their own promotion and run a show, and you and I were talking about, you know, selling out 10,000 seats may be tough, but maybe if they get Punk and Daniel Bryan, maybe then they could do something. So that's where we started the conversation. So
yeah,
there's a lot of things in there, a lot of really, really great stuff, a lot of things people probably forget about the foundation and the formation of AEW. Of course, we didn't know at the time that Tony Khan was as involved as he already was when All In took place. So it's an interesting time capsule. Like I said, 10 hours of Jim talking about AEW from December 2017 until September 2019.
It's amazing how time flies when you're having fun and getting old. And that's what we're doing. And next week, we're going to be having even more fun, and we're going to be a week older. And we will talk about week 2 of the Wednesday Night Wars and whoever the fuck knows what else happens in between now and then. And until then, in the meantime and in between time, folks, join us then. Thank you. Fuck you. Bye-bye, everybody.